What's going on, Fans? It is your boy Dillon, and I am here to do my, week 17 rooting guide. And let's just go ahead and jump right into it. No need to waste any time, especially because I'm getting to this a little bit later today, so sorry about that. But let's go ahead and get into it. So we don't really care about these NFC on NFC teams over here, obviously. We can just leave those out of it. But let's go ahead and take a look. So as it stands right now, and real quick, let's also go NFL playoff picture. Boom, boom. Forgot to pull this one up again. So what we're looking at here, obviously, is... What we're looking at here is two things. One, for the Miami Dolphins, obviously it's going to be, the path to really just the best seeding that we possibly can. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the way it is because the Ravens won against the 49ers, we're no longer able to clinch the number one seed in this week. But what a win in this week will do for us is clinch the division. So that will eliminate the Bills from being able to take over their division and obviously then drastically narrow their ability to make it to the playoffs in general. And then we also have games that in that circumstance that we're going to be looking at to knock them out of the playoffs as a wild card round. But yeah, and then obviously winning against Baltimore would also put us in position to get the number one seed after beating Baltimore in Week 18, which would then likely be elimination from the playoffs for them. So, so right now, I mean, we have clinched. Right now, we're the 2 seed. Obviously, Chiefs, Jags, Browns, Bills, Colts, Texans, Bengals, Steelers. So some of these teams on the back end, like the Bengals, we actually could use them to win. Now, I mean, ideal situation, I think at this point, like if we're keeping it honest, if we're keeping it completely honest, I think the most likely scenario is, as far as the Bills go, I think the most likely scenario is for the Bills, it's going to come down to Week 18 on whether or not they get in the playoffs basically at all. Because I think that, yes, if we lose to the Ravens this week, the division could be on the line. Obviously, if we win against the Ravens, because I think we're going to get the win. I think it's going to be a tough matchup. We'll talk about that more later, but I think we're going to get the win. Anyway, but if we were to lose to the Ravens, then the division obviously could be on the line. But either way, and even if the Bills do beat the Patriots this week, although, I don't think that's necessarily a guarantee, although I do expect them to win, their playoff hopes could likely still be in jeopardy altogether with that Week 18 game. Because if Miami wins, then obviously we would then clinch the division. And then even with a loss to the Ravens, we would then clinch the division, meaning they can't get into the playoffs that way. But then if some of these other teams win along the way, then they could be knocked out of the playoffs altogether. So let's just really quick take a look at that and rooting guide. So, all right, so you saw where it is. Obviously, Bills are 6th. So in this one, this Jets game here, it's interesting because we can like I said, we can no longer clinch the number one seed in this week with the Ravens winning. So that takes a little bit less out of this game because if the Ravens would have lost, because technically the Browns are still in the mix for the number one seed. Technically, even though they're the 5th seed currently, they're still in the mix for the number one seed. Now they would need some help, including both the both the Dolphins and Ravens both losing out, but there is still a chance for that. So it is interesting because, if the Ravens would have lost, then in order to get the number one seed, and especially to lock it up in this next week, we would have needed the Browns to have been upset by the Jets, and then we would have needed to beat Baltimore. We would have needed both of those things to happen, not just beating the Ravens. So, but that's no longer the case because we can't lock it up in Week 17, right? if we're going to get the number 1 seed, we have to win our last 2 games. But if we do, we're the number 1 seed. So anyway, back to this game. So since that element is no longer in play, it does change the dynamics a little bit. You could say maybe you root for the Jets because you want their playoff, their draft positioning to drop. The other reason to root for the Jets is to knock the Browns out of the potential to get the number 1 seed. There is also the other side of it where you could say the Jets are actually obviously no longer in the playoffs, so you'd actually want to maybe potentially root for the Browns to maybe potentially be one of those teams that helps to keep the Bills out ultimately. So this one, honestly, it's kind of a weird one. But at the end of the day, this one and this one are for sure. We absolutely want the Jags and the Steelers to win these ones because these are teams that can help muddy up the Bills' playoff chances as a wild card. Same thing for the Colts. Now, you see I put those 3 in and nothing really changed yet, but you see the Jags are 9-7, the Bills are 9-6. That's before their game here, right? Let's see. The Steelers are also 9-7. And then the Colts are also 9-7, with the Colts being the 7th seed, Steelers being the 8th seed. Okay. So now let's say Dolphins, let's say we beat the Ravens because, obviously rooting guide, we're rooting for that. We're obviously rooting for the Patriots to lose to win. And it's possible. I don't expect it, but it's possible. But as you can see, then that would drop the Bills to 8th after this week and out of the playoffs. Okay. Now, Texans, so let's see. Texans are another team that's 8-7, but then if the Texans win, they're 9-7. Now they're the 7th seed. Colts 6th seed, right? So you need all these teams. Basically at the end of the day, we're rooting for the Bills to lose and then the rest of these teams to win. The Bengals and the Broncos probably don't matter as much. But the Bengals definitely have, they both have head-to-head tiebreakers over the Bills. So there is that, but they're probably already too far behind. Although I do expect the Broncos to get that. But then look, that puts the Bills back all the way back down to 10th. Right? So basically, and then so then really you could say even, let's say the Jets get the win to hurt their draft positioning, while also helping to remove the Browns from contention for the number 1 seed. In fact, I think they might be eliminated for contention with the number 1 seed if the Jets were to lose. So this is pretty straightforward. This is a pretty easy rooting guide. Honestly, I know it's hard to root for the Jets, but they're out of contention for the playoffs, so that's not a concern. You root for them to get a win so their draft positioning will drop. And you root for them because the Browns are still technically in contention for the number 1 seed, and that would, I believe, eliminate them. Then, obviously, we're rooting for the Dolphins over the Ravens. That's clear and obvious. This is 2 division rivals, so it's kind of a wash there. Patriots are already eliminated from playoff contention, drop their draft positioning as well with a win, and help to eliminate the Bills. Well, if the Bills lost this game, if either one of these 2 games happens like this, if the Dolphins win or if the Patriots win, then they're eliminated from the AFC East and we have the division crown. But this would then obviously play towards eliminating them from the playoffs altogether, and then we would be rooting for Jacksonville, which Jacksonville should get that win, so that should be a win for us. I'm not so convinced the Jets are going to get that win, but it's possible. Maybe. I think the Colts can bounce back, and potentially get a win over the Raiders. They are at home, but you see what the Raiders are doing. This one's kind of a coin flip to me, although I would say maybe I'd be leaning towards the Raiders. I think the Steelers certainly can beat the Seahawks, so I don't think that's unreasonable. I don't think the Patriots are going to beat the Bills. I do think the Texans certainly can beat the Titans. I definitely think the Bengals can beat the Chiefs. I mean, they just got beat by the Raiders. I mean, what are the odds of them losing three? I think that would be 3 straight games in Arrowhead. Probably not. But I do think the Broncos are going to win. So at least a handful of these games should go in our favor. And part of when I say our favor, obviously I'm also talking about, having the Bills eliminated from playoff contention altogether. And this would be a beautiful week for Dolphins fans and for the NFL in general, in my opinion. I know everybody's like, oh, we just gotta have the Bills. We just gotta have the Bills in the playoffs because that would be good for the NFL and because Josh Allen, ooh. Whatever, dude. Honestly, I think that's kind of hogwash. I think that's bullshit. I think first and foremost, look, if they earn a playoff spot, then they earn a playoff spot. But at the end of the day, it comes down to 2 things to me. I think it's 2 things. One, whoever earns it, earns it. At the end of the day, however it plays out, and whoever's in the fucking playoffs, they got there because they earned it that year one way or another. Even if it's a shit team in a shit division and they just end up as the division leaders and get bounced in week 1, fine, so be it. But they still earned it by getting that division crown, okay? And then the other thing for me is honestly, I get it, having the darlings of the NFL be in the playoffs and the best teams and blah, 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 but if you don't make it to the playoffs because you don't win enough games, then there is an argument that you're not one of the best teams. But anyway, I digress there. But the other thing is I actually like the underdog stories. I like the fucking nobodies that, that were counted out. And that's part of the reason why I love that everybody counts us out, the Dolphins. And nobody thinks, they said it last week, the Dolphins are going to get destroyed by Dallas. And we didn't. We won. Everybody's saying the same thing pretty much this week, that we're going to get destroyed by Baltimore. Look, maybe we do. We're on the road. It's in Baltimore. It's going to be a tough game against a really tough team. Great defense, great offense. Lamar Jackson is amazing. We'll talk about more of that. Honestly, outside of the playoffs and for the regular season, to me, this is the biggest game, hands down. But anyway, yeah. So, I mean, look, it's going to be tough, but I absolutely believe that this team can go in there and win. And I think that they will. Like I said, more on that later, but, that's how I feel. So, and it's not just because I'm a Dolphins fan. And, if people have watched my channel in the past, I've never been the blind faith kind of a fan. I have tangible reasons because our defense is one of the tops in the league. We have one of the best offenses, one of the best fucking young head coaches in the game. This team can play gritty, tough football when people think that we can't. Like, there's all these reasons, and I love it, bro. Like I said, I love being the underdog. So I don't think the NFL needs to have the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs for the playoffs to be good. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't that long ago where we had a couple backup quarterbacks playing in the Super Bowl, and obviously then it was a backup quarterback that won. I think it was Eagles and somebody. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure you guys would know. But I'm saying, like, and I love shit like that. Is it also cool to get the best of the best in there? Absolutely. I'm not saying not, but you're going to get that. Because generally speaking, the best of the best are the ones that make it to the playoffs. So more often than not, that's what you're going to get. I like to have some sprinkling of, the underdogs and stuff. Like, honestly, the Steelers, bro, like, I'd love to see them in the playoffs. Or the Texans, I'd love to see them in the playoffs over the Bills, in my opinion. And I'm just sick of and frankly, too, and the Chiefs kind of fall under this, too, is like, I'm just so sick of, like, teams. Look, they deserve their respect for their resumes 100%, but this year is different than all previous years. Frankly, what happened last year and the year after, the year before that and the year before that has no bearing on this season. So let's not get fucking hyped up and stuck in this, oh, well, we're only going to have good playoffs if the league darlings are the ones in the playoffs. No, how about we have some underdogs and some nobodies and some feel-good stories and all this shit. Like, come on, bro. Brock Purdy being, Mr. Irrelevant and then making it that as far as he did. Like that, I love seeing shit like that. Like, and I think that adds to the game just as much as having all the stars in it. It's just in a different way. But like I said, the playoffs are always going to be overwhelmingly the best of the best with the fucking stars of the league in it. So to sprinkle in a couple teams here and there, I think is amazing. And I would rather have, like I said, I would rather have the Steelers and the Texans in the playoffs than the motherfucking Bills. So, and look, just to wrap it up, if it did, at the end of week 17, if it were to play out like this, Dolphins would be number 1 seed. Obviously, I love that. Ravens number 2, Browns 5th, KC 3rd, Jacksonville 4th, Colts 6th, and Texans 7th. And then if that happened, and then if that were the playoffs, I'd be cool with that. I think that would be a good mix because then look, you'd have Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce. You'd have the Jags with Trevor Lawrence. You'd have a couple of those outlier teams like the Texans, one that I like, and the Colts. And then you'd have the Dolphins and the Ravens at the top of the conference, right? And the Browns up in that mix. I think that would be an awesome set of playoff teams, and I think that would make for a lot of good football in the playoffs. So, I don't know. And that's with the Bills being out of it. Obviously, yes, admittedly, as a Dolphins fan, I also want to see them not make the playoffs because they're a division rival. But again, just to also dispel this narrative or notion that the playoffs wouldn't be good if Josh Allen and the Bills don't make it, I think is ridiculous. So, anywho, that's my 2 cents on it. And there's your rooting guide as far as I'm concerned. Maybe 1 or 2 of those games you might feel a little bit differently, but I think it's pretty straightforward. Like I said, obviously the idea here is we beat the Ravens to control our destiny, clinch the division, and, set ourselves up for the number 1 seed. And then the rest of those games are really for 2 other reasons: to eliminate the Bills from the playoffs while also hurting the draft positioning of both the Jets and the Patriots. So there you have it. There's your week 17 rooting guide. And I'm going to get out of here on that note. So if you like my content and all that good stuff, make sure you share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave comments down in the comment section. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'm out of here. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Fins up all day, every day.
Miami wins it.